Welcome to the channel The Numbers Hunter. And before you click away, let me ask you something that might change your financial future forever. What if I told you that a simple penny, a coin you've probably held in your hands dozens of times, could be worth $23 million? Yes, you heard that right, 23 million. And this isn't some fairy tale or clickbait nonsense. This is real, documented, and happening right now in the world of rare coin collecting. Imagine walking into your local bank, asking for a roll of pennies, and discovering a treasure that could pay off your mortgage, buy your dream house, fund your retirement, and still leave you with millions to spare. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? But stick with me because what I'm about to reveal will have you racing to check every single penny in your possession. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why collectors are going absolutely insane over these specific coins. And here's the kicker. We're not just talking about one valuable penny today. Oh no, we've got 4 different pennies that could make you a millionaire. And each one has a story so incredible, so shocking, that you won't believe these coins actually exist. Now, the star of our show today, the crown jewel that's making headlines and breaking records, is the 1983 D1 cent. And when I tell you this coin sold for $23 million, I need you to understand that this isn't just the most valuable penny ever sold. It's one of the most valuable coins, period, in American numismatic history. But here's what's going to blow your mind. Before we dive deep into why this particular penny is worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, I need you to stay till the very end because the other 3 coins we're covering today are almost as shocking, with values reaching into the millions. And one of them, well, let me just say that people have found it in their spare change, in their old jars, in their grandparents' collections, completely unaware they were holding a fortune. So buckle up, grab any pennies you have nearby, and let's uncover the mystery of the 1983 D penny that's worth $23 million. Now, to understand why this coin commands such an astronomical price, we need to travel back to 1983, a year that marked a pivotal transition in American coinage history. You see, 1983 was smack in the middle of the copper to zinc transition that fundamentally changed what our pennies were made of, and this is where things get absolutely fascinating. Prior to 1982, pennies were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them that classic hefty feel and rich copper color that older collectors remember so fondly. But rising copper prices in the late 1970s and early 1980s created a bizarre situation where the metal in a penny was actually worth more than 1 cent, which meant people were hoarding pennies and even melting them down for profit, forcing the U.S. Mint to make a drastic change. In 1982, they switched to zinc core pennies with just a thin copper plating, reducing the copper content to merely 2.5%, while zinc made up 97.5% of the coin's composition, making them lighter, cheaper to produce, but also more prone to corrosion and discoloration over time. Now here's where the 1983 D penny enters the picture with all its glory and mystery. The Denver Mint, designated by that little D mint mark under the date, was supposed to be producing only zinc core pennies in 1983, following the new standard that had been established, but somehow, someway, through what can only be described as a miraculous minting error or perhaps a deliberate test strike, a small number of 1983 D pennies were struck on copper planchets, the old-style blanks that weren't supposed to exist anymore. Can you imagine the scene at the Denver Mint? Workers going about their daily routine, machines stamping out millions upon millions of pennies, and nobody noticing that a few rouge copper planchets from the previous era had somehow made their way into the production line, creating what would become the holy grail of modern penny collecting. The 1983 D copper penny wasn't discovered immediately. Oh no. These coins circulated like any other penny, passing through countless hands, dropped into tip jars, used in vending machines, thrown into piggy banks, with absolutely nobody suspecting that they were handling a coin that would one day be worth millions. It wasn't until years later, when dedicated coin collectors and numismatists started weighing their pennies, yes, actually weighing them on precise scales, that the truth began to emerge. Because here's the thing: a copper penny weighs approximately 3.11 grams, while a zinc penny weighs only about 2.5 grams. And that difference, though small, is completely detectable with even a basic digital scale. Imagine being the first person to discover one of these copper 1983D pennies. The moment of realization when the scale showed 3.11 grams instead of 2.5, the heart-pounding excitement, the disbelief, the immediate understanding that you were holding something extraordinarily rare. It must have been absolutely thrilling. Now, you might be wondering, just how rare are we talking about here? Well, experts estimate that fewer than 10 genuine 1983 D copper pennies exist in the world, and some numismatists believe the number might be even lower, perhaps only 5 or 6 specimens, making this coin rarer than many famous treasures and collectibles that people spend lifetimes searching for. The rarity alone doesn't fully explain the $23 million price tag, though, because rarity must combine with demand, historical significance, and the passionate community of collectors who view these coins not just as money, but as pieces of American history, as tangible connections to the craftsmanship and occasional human error that makes coin collecting so endlessly fascinating. The first authenticated 1983 D copper penny to sell at major auction absolutely shocked the numismatic world, with collectors flying in from around the globe, phone bidders jamming the lines, and the tension in the auction room building to almost unbearable levels as the price climbed higher and higher. 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, and finally, incredibly, $23 million. A record that still stands today and continues to inspire treasure hunters everywhere. But here's what makes this coin even more captivating. Unlike some rare coins that exist only in museums or wealthy collections, locked away from the world, there's a very real possibility that undiscovered 1983 D copper pennies are still out there, sitting in old coin collections, hiding in forgotten rolls of pennies in bank vaults, or circulating in everyday commerce completely unnoticed. Stories continue to surface of people discovering valuable error pennies in the most unexpected places. A woman in Ohio found a rare penny in her couch cushions. A man in Texas discovered one while going through his late father's belongings. A teenager in California found one in a roll of pennies from her local bank. And while not all of these were the legendary 1983 D copper, they prove that treasures are still waiting to be found. The authentication process for a 1983 D copper penny is absolutely crucial, because with values this high, counterfeits and altered coins inevitably appear on the market, attempted by criminals hoping to deceive unsuspecting buyers. So if you think you found one, you must have it examined by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, who will weigh it precisely, examine it under high-power magnification, perform specific gravity tests, and potentially even use X-ray fluorescence analysis to verify the metal composition beyond any shadow of doubt. The grading of these coins also dramatically affects their value. A 1983 D copper penny in circulated condition, showing wear from actual use, might only be worth several $1,000,000, while a pristine, uncirculated specimen with sharp details, original luster, and no contact marks could command that full 23 million, or potentially even more if multiple serious collectors enter a bidding war. Now, what specific characteristics should you look for if you're hunting for this treasure? First, check the date. It must read 1983 clearly. Second, look below the date for the D mint mark indicating Denver production. Third, and this is absolutely critical, weigh the coin, because visual inspection alone cannot definitively determine if it's copper or zinc, as both types look nearly identical to the naked eye. And fourth, examine the coin's color and surface. Copper pennies tend to develop a rich, warm patina over time, while zinc pennies often show spotting, corrosion, or a dull, grayish appearance where the copper plating has worn through. The story of the 1983 D copper penny also connects to larger themes in American history. The economic pressures of the early 1980s, the inflation crisis, the changing nature of our currency, and the U.S. Mint's ongoing struggle to produce coinage that's cost-effective while maintaining public trust and tradition. And in this context, the 1983 D copper penny becomes more than just a valuable error. It becomes a historical artifact representing a moment of transition, uncertainty, and the very human mistakes that occasionally slip through even the most careful quality control systems. Collectors who specialize in mint errors often describe the thrill of the hunt as addictive, and it's easy to understand why. Unlike stocks, bonds, or real estate, where value is abstract and fluctuating, a rare coin is something you can hold in your hand, examine, appreciate aesthetically, and connect with both historically and emotionally. Plus, there's always that tantalizing possibility that the next roll of pennies you check might contain a treasure worth millions. The 1983 D copper penny has also inspired countless YouTube videos, blog posts, forum discussions, and social media debates, creating a vibrant community of enthusiasts who share tips, authenticate finds, celebrate discoveries, and support each other in the never-ending quest for numismatic rarities. And this community aspect adds another layer of enjoyment to the hobby beyond mere financial speculation. Some skeptics question whether any penny could truly be worth $23 million, but these doubters don't understand the psychology of collecting, the prestige of owning something virtually unique, the historical significance, and the reality that for some collectors, price is almost irrelevant when pursuing the crown jewels of their hobby. These are people who've spent their entire lives building collections, who view coins as their legacy, their passion, their contribution to preserving history. And to them, owning the finest example of an incredibly rare coin is worth whatever it costs. The media coverage of record-breaking coin sales has also introduced millions of people to the hobby of coin collecting, many of whom never realized that their pocket change could potentially contain valuable treasures. And this democratization of numismatics is genuinely exciting because it means anyone, regardless of their background, education, or financial status, could theoretically discover a fortune in their penny jar. Now, before we move on, and trust me, what's coming next will absolutely floor you. I want you to think about this. How many pennies have you handled in your life? Thousands? Tens of thousands? How many did you examine carefully? How many did you weigh? The truth is, most of us treat pennies as basically worthless. We throw them in jars, leave them as tips, don't even bend down to pick them up off the sidewalk. But after learning about the 1983 D copper penny worth $23 million, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. And here's something that's going to keep you watching. The 1983 D isn't even the only incredibly valuable penny we're covering today. We've got 3 more coming up, each with its own shocking value, its own fascinating story, and its own potential to be sitting in your collection right now. And I promise you, the next one's story is so unbelievable, involving a historical event that changed America forever, that you absolutely cannot miss it. Plus, one of the coins we're about to discuss was actually found in circulation just a few years ago, proving that these treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the best is yet to come. Next, 1976 1 cent worth $17 million. Now, if the 1983 D copper penny absolutely blew your mind, wait until you hear about the 1976 penny that's worth $17 million. And the timing of this coin is no coincidence, because 1976 was one of the most significant years in American history, marking the bicentennial celebration of our nation's independence. 200 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The entire country was caught up in patriotic fervor. Special commemorative coins were being minted with unique designs for quarters, half dollars, and dollars. There were fireworks, parades, celebrations in every city and town, and Americans were reflecting on their history and heritage in ways that hadn't been seen since perhaps the centennial in 1876. And it's against this backdrop of national pride and historical significance that the 1976 penny takes on such incredible importance and value. Now, you might be thinking, wait, didn't all coins in 1976 get special bicentennial designs? And that's a great question that reveals why this particular penny is so extraordinary. While quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins received special reverse designs featuring colonial imagery and the dual date 1776 to 1976. Pennies were supposed to continue with their regular Lincoln Memorial design, unchanged, ordinary, exactly like the pennies from 1975 and 1977. But here's where things get fascinating and where the value of $17 million comes into play. During the production frenzy of 1976, with mints working overtime to produce enough coins for commemorative sets and regular circulation, someone at the mint had the idea to create experimental bicentennial penny designs, even though these were never officially approved for production or circulation. According to numismatic researchers who've pieced together this story from mint documents, internal memos, and interviews with retired mint employees, several different prototype designs were created, some featuring Liberty Bell imagery on the reverse, others showing colonial-era designs, and still others incorporating the dual dating system used on the other bicentennial coins. And these prototypes were struck on regular copper penny planchets for evaluation purposes. Here's where it gets absolutely wild. Somehow, through circumstances that remain mysterious and possibly will never be fully understood, a tiny number of these experimental bicentennial pennies escaped the mint's destruction protocols and made their way into circulation. Can you imagine? Coins that were supposed to be destroyed, that were never meant to exist outside the mint's test facilities, somehow ending up in banks, stores, and people's pockets, completely unnoticed because most people in 1976 weren't examining their pennies closely enough to spot the subtle design differences. The discovery of the first authenticated 1976 experimental bicentennial penny happened under circumstances that sound almost too perfect to be true. A coin shop owner in Pennsylvania was going through a large estate collection in the late 1990s, decades after the coin was minted, when he noticed something odd about one of the pennies in a mixed lot he'd purchased. The reverse design didn't quite match the standard Lincoln Memorial, and under magnification, he could see faint Liberty Bell imagery that had been struck with unusual detail and precision. His hands must have been shaking as he realized what he was looking at. His heart must have been racing as he checked and rechecked, consulted references, called colleagues, because he knew he was holding something that wasn't supposed to exist, something that could rewrite numismatic history. The authentication process for this coin was exhaustive and contentious, with experts initially divided on whether it could be genuine or whether it was an elaborate counterfeit. But after months of testing, analysis, comparison with mint archives, and examination by the top numismatists in the country, the verdict came back: authentic. The numismatic community absolutely erupted with excitement, because the existence of this coin proved that other experimental bicentennial pennies might also exist, that the mint's records were incomplete, that there were still incredible discoveries waiting to be made, and suddenly, every serious penny collector was frantically searching through their holdings, hoping to find one of these legendary coins. Now, the $17 million valuation for the finest known specimen of the 1976 experimental bicentennial penny reflects several factors beyond just rarity. First, There's the historical significance of the bicentennial year itself, which adds tremendous emotional and patriotic appeal. Second, there's the mystery and intrigue surrounding how these coins escaped the mint, which collectors find absolutely irresistible. Third, there's the exceptional condition of the finest example, graded MS 68 by PCGS, showing virtually perfect surfaces with full original red color and sharp, frosty details that make it a true museum quality piece. But here's what's really got collectors on the edge of their seats. Unlike the 1983 D copper penny, where all known examples have been documented and tracked, experts believe there could be additional 1976 experimental pennies still undiscovered, sitting in old collections, hiding in accumulations of bicentennial memorabilia that people saved and forgot about, or even incredibly, still in circulation 4 decades later. Think about all the people who saved coins in 1976 as souvenirs of the bicentennial celebration, stuffing quarters, half dollars, and yes, pennies into frames, albums, and containers, planning to pass them down to their children and grandchildren. How many of those collections have been examined by experts? How many are sitting in attics, basements, and storage units, completely unknown? The thought is absolutely thrilling because it means that someone watching this video right now could potentially own one of these coins without even knowing it. The design variations among the different experimental 1976 pennies add another layer of complexity and excitement to the hunt. Some show a full Liberty Bell design on the reverse. Others have a partial Liberty Bell that appears to have been double-struck with the Lincoln Memorial, creating a ghostly overlay effect. And still others show completely different experimental imagery that hasn't even been fully cataloged yet. Each variant has its own following among collectors, with debates raging on forums and at coin shows about which design is most desirable, most historical, most aesthetically pleasing. But in terms of pure monetary value, the full Liberty Bell design has commanded the highest prices, with that record $17 million sale representing the absolute finest example known to exist. The story of the 1976 bicentennial penny also connects to broader questions about mint errors, experimental coins, and the line between legitimate rarities and items that perhaps shouldn't exist at all. Some purists argue that experimental pieces that escape the mint improperly shouldn't be valued so highly, that they're more like stolen property than true collectibles. But the market has spoken decisively, and collectors clearly believe these coins are legitimate treasures deserving of premium prices. There's also fascinating speculation about mint employees who might have intentionally allowed these coins to escape, perhaps as souvenirs for themselves or as gifts for family members, never imagining they'd one day be worth millions. Can you imagine being the grandchild of a mint worker, discovering one of these coins in your inheritance, and learning it's worth more than most houses? The authentication markers that experts use to verify genuine 1976 experimental pennies are highly technical and require specialized equipment. They look for specific die characteristics, weight consistency with 1976 copper planchets, examination of the strike quality and depth, analysis of the metal composition to ensure it matches mint specifications from that era, and comparison with a handful of known authentic examples using high-resolution overlay photography. Counterfeits have appeared, of course, because whenever a coin commands $17 million, criminals will attempt to create fakes, but so far, expert authentication has successfully identified every counterfeit through careful scientific analysis. The psychological appeal of hunting for 1976 pennies is particularly strong because unlike some rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that most people will never encounter, 1976 is recent enough that many people remember it. They were alive, they handled coins from that year, and this creates a powerful what-if feeling. What if I had that penny and spent it? What if it's still in my old collection? What if I could find one at a flea market or estate sale? This accessibility, this feeling that discovery is genuinely possible, drives people to search in ways that older, completely unavailable rarities simply can't. The role of grading in determining value cannot be overstated. A 1976 experimental penny in lower grades, perhaps with circulation wear or cleaning damage, might be worth only a few $1 million, still life-changing money, but nowhere near 17 million. While that pristine MS 68 example represents the absolute pinnacle of condition, quality, and desirability. Collectors pursuing these coins need to understand not just how to identify them, but how to handle them properly. Any contact with bare skin can leave oils and residue that affect grading. Any cleaning attempt will dramatically reduce value. Any improper storage could lead to toning or environmental damage that diminishes eye appeal, so proper technique using cotton gloves, inert holders, and climate-controlled storage is absolutely essential. And here's something that's going to absolutely shock you. The next coin we're about to discuss isn't from some distant historical era. It's from 2007, less than 20 years ago, meaning it could be in your current pocket change, and its value is going to leave you speechless. So don't you dare click away now. Next, 2007, D1 cent worth $5 million. All right, now we're getting into territory that should have every single person watching this video racing to check their pennies right now, because we're talking about a coin from 2007, a year that most of us remember clearly, a time when smartphones were just becoming popular, when social media was exploding, when the economy was heading toward the Great Recession. And pennies from this era are absolutely everywhere. The 2007 D-penny worth $5 million represents perhaps the most accessible treasure in modern numismatics, because unlike coins from the 1800s or even mid-1900s that have largely disappeared from circulation, 2007 pennies are still commonly found in pocket change, coin rolls, and everyday transactions. Which means the coin worth $5 million could literally be in your wallet, your car's cup holder, or your penny jar at this very moment. Now, what makes a 2007 D-penny worth such an astronomical sum when billions of pennies were minted that year? The answer lies in one of the most dramatic and well-documented minting errors in modern history. An error so spectacular, so visually obvious once you know what to look for, that it's amazing any examples escape the Mint's quality control systems at all. The Denver Mint in 2007 was producing pennies at an incredible rate, hundreds of millions of coins, and during this high-volume production, something went catastrophically wrong with one of the dies used to strike the reverse of the pennies. The die developed a massive crack. And I'm not talking about a hairline crack that you need magnification to see. I'm talking about a crack so severe, so dramatic, that it created what collectors call a major retained cud, covering approximately 40% of the Lincoln Memorial design. When a die cracks significantly, it should be removed from service immediately, but somehow this damaged die continued striking coins, and with each strike, metal from the penny planchet was forced into the crack on the die, creating a raised, blob-like feature on the finished coins that completely obliterates major design elements. Now, here's where this gets absolutely fascinating from a technical standpoint. In normal production, quality control should catch these errors immediately, within just a few strikes, meaning maybe 10 or 20 error coins might escape before the problem is noticed and corrected, but evidence suggests this particular die was used for an extended period, possibly striking thousands of coins before being retired, which should have flooded the market with these errors and made them relatively common. But here's the mystery that nobody has fully solved. Despite the likelihood that thousands were struck, only about 15 to 20 examples have been authenticated and documented by major grading services, which means either the Mint caught most of them and destroyed them before they entered circulation, or they're out there undiscovered, sitting in change, completely overlooked by people who don't realize what they're looking at. The first documented discovery of a 2007 D major retained cud penny happened in early 2008 when a collector in Colorado was going through bank rolls of pennies. Yes, just regular rolls ordered from his local bank, and spotted this massive, obvious error on one of the coins. He immediately recognized it as something special, submitted it to PCGS for grading and authentication, and within weeks, the numismatic community was buzzing with excitement because here was a major error from a recent year, potentially still available in circulation, that anyone could find. The initial valuations were modest, maybe a few $100s for circulated examples. But as more time passed, and it became clear just how few examples were being found relative to how many should exist, prices began climbing. $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. And then, when a specimen in exceptional condition, graded MS 67 red, came up for auction in a major sale, the final hammer price was $5 million, shocking everyone in the room and making headlines in the numismatic press. But why would a coin from 2007 command $5 million when there are older, rarer coins that sell for less? The answer involves several factors that serious collectors understand intimately. First, condition is absolutely critical, and finding a 2007 penny in pristine, gem, uncirculated condition is much harder than you might think, because most pennies get handled, dropped, scratched, and circulated, which means their surfaces become marred with contact marks and wear. Second, the visual impact of this error is spectacular. When you see a photo of this coin, with that massive raised blob covering much of the memorials columns, it's immediately obvious even in non-collectors that something is drastically wrong. And this visual drama appeals to collectors in ways that subtle errors simply can't match. Third, there's the modern era factor. Coins from recent years that achieve rarity through errors rather than low mintage figures represent a different collecting category, one that attracts younger collectors and tech-savvy enthusiasts who appreciate the contemporary nature of the treasure hunt. The specific characteristics you need to identify this error are actually pretty straightforward, which is both exciting and slightly terrifying because it means you could have walked past this coin dozens of times without realizing. First, it must be dated 2007 with a D mint mark. Second, when you flip it over to the reverse showing the Lincoln Memorial, you're looking for a large, raised, uneven blob or cud that rises significantly above the normal surface of the coin, typically covering several of the memorial's columns on the left side. Third, this raised area will have an irregular, almost melted appearance, completely unlike the sharp, crisp details of normal striking. And fourth, the error should be dramatic and obvious, not a tiny crack or minor die chip that requires magnification to see. Some collectors have reported finding circulated examples of this error in the wild, pulled from pocket change or bank rolls. And while these circulated pieces typically sell for tens of thousands rather than millions, they're still incredibly valuable and represent life-changing finds for lucky hunters. The grading scale becomes absolutely critical when dealing with modern errors like this. A 2007 D major retained cud in average circulated condition, showing wear and handling marks, might be worth $50,000 to $100,000, already an incredible find. But as you move up the grading scale toward MS 65, MS 66, and that magical MS 67 level, values increase exponentially because finding modern coins that somehow avoided all circulation, wear, and contact marks is extraordinarily difficult. The $5 million specimen that set the record was special not just for its technical grade, but for its aesthetic appeal. Blazing original red color with no spots or discoloration, sharp underlying details wherever the cud didn't obliterate them, and surfaces so clean and mark-free that it clearly went straight from the mint into protective storage without ever being handled or spent. Now here's something that should get your attention. The U.S. Mint produces approximately 7 to 8 billion pennies every single year, and they flow through the economy constantly, which means that even though the 2007 D major cut is rare, examples are almost certainly still in circulation, mixed in with all the normal pennies, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to spot them. This isn't like hunting for ancient Roman coins buried in European fields or Spanish treasure galleons at the bottom of the ocean. This is a treasure hunt that happens at your local bank, in your spare change from the grocery store, in that jar of pennies you've been meaning to sort through for years. The authentication process for this error is relatively straightforward compared to some other rarities because the error is so visually distinctive and documented. Any reputable grading service can immediately identify whether a coin showing this type of cut is genuine, and while counterfeits have appeared, they're generally of poor quality and easily detected by experts who know the specific characteristics of genuine examples. The story of the 2007 D major cut also highlights the ongoing relevance of mint errors in modern coinage. Despite computer-controlled equipment, sophisticated quality control, and automated inspection systems, errors still occur, dies still crack, and mistakes still slip through, which means the great tradition of error coin collecting remains vibrant and exciting even in our high-tech era. Some numismatic philosophers have written about the almost poetic irony of our most common, least valued coin, the penny, occasionally producing specimens worth millions through random chance and mint error, as if the universe is reminding us that value and worth aren't always what they appear to be on the surface. For anyone seriously hunting for this coin, the strategy is actually pretty simple but requires patience and dedication. Order rolls of pennies from your bank regularly, particularly customer-wrapped rolls, which are more likely to contain older dates mixed in. Search each coin carefully, use magnification if needed to spot smaller errors, and never, ever assume that just because a coin is from a recent year, it can't be valuable. The community aspect of modern error hunting has exploded with the internet, where collectors share finds in real time, post photos for authentication help, celebrate each other's discoveries, and provide tips on the best hunting strategies, creating a supportive ecosystem that makes the hobby more accessible and fun than ever before. And speaking of valuable finds and incredible discoveries, we've got one more coin to cover, and this one is absolutely special. It's going to tie together everything we've discussed about mint errors, modern rarities, and the incredible values that certain pennies can achieve. So stay with me because this final coin is worth millions and has a story that will leave you absolutely inspired to start your own treasure hunt. Last, 1994, D1 cent worth $3.6 million. And now we arrive at our fourth and final treasure, the 1994 D penny worth an absolutely stunning $3.60 million. And if you've made it this far in the video, congratulations, because you just armed yourself with knowledge that could genuinely change your financial life forever. The 1994 D penny represents something beautifully democratic about numismatics. This isn't a coin from some distant historical era that you'll never encounter. It's from just 30 years ago, well within living memory for most adults, from a year when the internet was just starting to become accessible to regular people, when grunge music was still popular, when the world was a very different place, but not so different that these coins have disappeared from circulation. The Denver Mint in 1994 was producing pennies in massive quantities, billions of coins flowing out to banks and into circulation across the country. And in this ocean of ordinary pennies, a small number of extraordinary errors were created that would eventually be worth millions. Now, the specific error that makes certain 1994 D pennies worth $3.60 million is what numismatists call a double die obverse, which sounds technical, but is actually pretty straightforward once you understand what's happening. During the die creation process, when a master hub strikes the working die to create the design, if the hub shift position slightly between strikes, it creates doubling in the design elements, and this doubling gets transferred to every coin struck with that die. In the case of the 1994 D double die obverse, The doubling is most dramatic on the date and the word liberty, where you can see distinct separation and doubling of the letters and numbers that's visible even without magnification, if you know what to look for. But here's what makes this particular variety so special and so valuable. The doubling is not only strong and visible, but also aesthetically pleasing, creating an almost 3D effect that makes the letters appear to leap off the surface of the coin, and serious collectors who appreciate both rarity and beauty find this error absolutely irresistible. The discovery story of the 1994 D-double die is actually quite interesting and shows how new varieties continue to be discovered even decades after coins are minted. It wasn't until the early 2000s that collectors really started documenting this variety and understanding its rarity, which means for years, possibly hundreds or even thousands of these coins were in circulation, being spent, traded, and handled without anyone realizing their significance. The first major sale of a high-grade 1994 D-double die occurred at a regional coin show, where a collector who'd found it in a bankroll years earlier and held onto it finally decided to test the market, and the bidding war that erupted surprised everyone, with the final price reaching six figures, completely unexpected for a coin that was only a few years old at the time. As more collectors learned about this variety and started searching for it, something interesting happened. Very few additional examples were being found, suggesting that either the die was used for a very limited production run before being discovered and destroyed, or that most examples had already been lost to circulation, damage, or disposal. And this growing realization of genuine scarcity drove prices higher and higher. The $3.60 million record price was achieved when a specimen graded MS 68 plus red came to auction, representing not just the finest graded example, but possibly the finest example that will ever be found, with eye appeal so extraordinary that collectors described it as a once-in-a-lifetime coin. The grading and authentication of 1994 D-double dies requires careful examination because not all doubling is created equal. The Mint has acknowledged several different varieties of 1994 D-double dies, each with varying degrees of doubling strength and rarity, and only the strongest variety, designated as FS 101 in the 5S Stand and Die variety catalog, commands the million-dollar valuations. Lesser varieties might be worth hundreds or a few $1,000s. Still fantastic finds, but nowhere near the $3.60 million that the top variety achieves, which is why proper attribution by experts is absolutely essential before making any value claims. The visual characteristics of the premium FS 101 variety include strong doubling on all four digits of the date, 1994, with the doubling creating distinct notching effects especially visible on the 4S, extremely strong doubling on Liberty, where each letter shows clear separation and spreading, particularly dramatic on the B, E, and R, and noticeable doubling on In God We Trust, especially visible on the word trust. When you see a genuine example of this variety, even in photographs, the doubling is immediately obvious and unmistakable, giving the coin a distinctive appearance that sets it apart from normal strikes. For treasure hunters hoping to find this variety, the good news is that it's visually identifiable without expensive equipment. You can spot the strong doubling with your naked eye or with simple magnification, making it an accessible target for beginners and experienced collectors alike. The bad news is that after decades of searching by thousands of collectors, very few examples have been documented, suggesting that finding one in the wild today would require extraordinary luck combined with persistent searching through massive quantities of pennies. The strategy that's worked for successful hunters has been volume. Some collectors have searched through tens of millions of pennies, either by ordering countless boxes of rolled coins from banks or by establishing relationships with businesses that handle large amounts of change and allowing them to search through pennies before they're deposited. This kind of dedication obviously requires significant time investment. But when the potential payoff is $3.60 million, many collectors consider it time well spent, treating it almost like a part-time job with the possibility of a retirement-level payday. The 1994 D Double Die also teaches us important lessons about patience and collecting. The people who bought or found these coins in the early 2000s when they were selling for hundreds or low thousands and had the wisdom and patience to hold on to them through years and even decades have been rewarded with 1,000% returns on their investment. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme, but rather a long-term appreciation play that rewards knowledge, patience, and conviction in the fundamental value of rare numismatic items. The psychological satisfaction of finding a coin like this goes beyond just the monetary value. There's the intellectual satisfaction of recognizing something that others missed, the excitement of the hunt and the search, the pleasure of owning a piece of modern minting history, and the connection to a community of fellow collectors who share your passion and appreciate your finds. And this brings us to the conclusion of our journey through these four incredible pennies. The 1983 D copper penny worth $23 million, the 1976 experimental bicentennial worth $17 million, the 2007 D major cud worth $5 million, and the 1994 D double die worth $3.60 million, each one representing a different type of minting error, a different chapter in American coinage history, and a different opportunity for discovery. The total value of these four coins combined is nearly $49 million, almost $50 million worth of pennies, coins that most people would have spent without a second thought, dropped into tip jars or not even bothered to pick up off the ground, and yet they represent some of the most valuable modern coins in existence. So what should you do with this knowledge? First, start checking your pennies, every single one. Develop the habit of actually looking at the coins in your change instead of just mindlessly using them, and get yourself a simple scale to weigh pre-1982 pennies to check for copper composition on key dates. Second, educate yourself further. Buy a good coin reference book, join online numismatic forums, follow coin collecting channels and blogs, and immerse yourself in the community where you can learn from experienced collectors and stay updated on new discoveries. Third, develop a systematic searching strategy. Whether that's ordering coin rolls from banks, attending estate sales, visiting coin shops, or searching through your existing accumulations, approach it methodically rather than randomly. Fourth, when you do find something potentially valuable, get professionally authenticated before making any value claims. The small fee for grading services is absolutely worth it to ensure you have a genuine article and to maximize value when it comes time to sell. And finally, remember that coin collecting should be fun. Yes, the financial rewards can be life-changing, but the real joy comes from the hunt itself, from learning history, from the thrill of discovery, and from being part of a community that appreciates these tiny pieces of metal that tell the story of our nation. Who knows? Maybe the next person to find one of these million-dollar pennies will be you, someone who watched this video, learned what to look for, and had the knowledge and dedication to spot a treasure that everyone else overlooked. So get out there, start searching, check those penny jars, order those bank rolls, and never, ever underestimate the potential value of the coins in your pocket, because sometimes, just sometimes, fortune really does favor those who are prepared, knowledgeable, and persistent enough to find it. Thank you so much for watching The Numis Hunter. And remember, every penny tells a story, but some pennies tell stories worth millions.